Hi, and welcome to Book of Mormon Thoughts. I'm Ganel-Lyn, and I'm so thrilled to have you join me. If you've been following along, when we started the Book of Mormon Challenge at the end of 2018, I have promised to continue these videos so that my YouTube channel has the full Book of Mormon. And so I'm working through it a little bit slower than we did last year at the end with that challenge so that we can get some extra nitty-gritties out of our study of the Book of Mormon. So welcome. I am sharing some thoughts today on 1 Nephi 17. And this chapter is teaches me so many principles, and so I really hope it blesses your life in some way. This is where Nephi is commanded to build a ship, and I've wondered, was he spiritually prepared in some way? Have you ever had that experience where you see in your mind's eye something that you think is kind of like impossible, and then it eventually happens? I just had that today happen with something that I was shown spiritually a year ago, and today in the temple it was manifested that the person was there, and it was such a beautiful experience. And so today I want to share the thoughts that here is this non-boat building, ship building man, Nephi. He's a skilled hunter. We've learned that about the whole broken bow situation, right? But he didn't live by a port in Jerusalem. And so the fact that he was commanded to build a ship that was unlike any other out in the wilderness, maybe without tools, obviously without tools, is interesting. The beginning of this chapter shows them talking about how really hard this wilderness experience is. And I love the idea that a wilderness experience is not a wasteland experience. The Lord has provided meat and told them not to burn it, right? Maybe that was because there was a lack of wood along this area of travel where maybe travelers were. Maybe people were looking for them because they had taken the plates and Laban was found dead. I don't know. But the Lord sweetens the meat, and the women are able to give birth, and they're strengthened. It made me think about, I don't know if you've seen the movie The Quiet Place, and I don't love scary movies, but I love that movie, and it made me think about this family, if you haven't seen it, and she's pregnant and she gives birth, and I don't know, just kind of the funny things I think about when I read the scriptures that help me liken them. And then it's an 8-year experience in the wilderness. How come? I wonder how come, except for the fact that the Lord likes to use numbers and patterns. Witnesses of 3, 8 is a completion, it's perfection. And so the experiences they learned in the wilderness really prepared them for then crossing the waters to the promised land. And so what did they need to learn as a people? What did they need to strengthen and experience in leaving their home and their comfort? There's an area of the scriptures that reference how there's an oasis before their journey. And you can research that word that is used, Iriantum. And I did some research on that. There's either one Semitic language or 4 Egyptian root languages possibility to that word, which we know from the Book of Mormon record that was started. It was there was forms of Egyptian. It was a type of Egyptian, right, that he was using in his language. And so that would be very much in line and very different than the other words used or names of places used, and that Joseph Smith, how would he have known this word? So you can Google that word. And how long were they there? I'm not sure, but it's a place where they're kind of able to gather supplies maybe and rejuvenate their seeds and food and all of those things before their journey. Then Nephi is told to go up to the mountain, which is an AKA for the temple. He cries unto the Lord. I love the word cry. Brother Jared is chastened by the Lord for not crying unto the Lord, and I don't think that means he stopped praying to him for all those years. I think crying unto the Lord kind of prayers are like, these are the guts of my soul kind of questions, and these are the struggles I'm having that are weighing on my mind. When was the last time you've cried unto the Lord? And Nephi has shown how to build a ship, but also where there's a deposit of ore to make the tools. So I think there's a pattern here. The Lord commands, then he provides the tools, and then he instructs, and then we know. That's the pattern of building this ship, right? But it's also the pattern for us when we're commanded to do things that feel like, how are we possibly going to do that? And then it says in the scriptures that God was their light. They didn't have to use fire to cook. They relied on the Lord completely. Maybe this wilderness experience was about that. Could God prepare this little band of people to be united with each other? And we see that they constantly have conflict, at least Laman and Lemuel do, but to learn to trust upon God. Then the brothers mock Nephi for trying to even build a ship. They know he's not a shipbuilder. And they see the worry and the sadness on Nephi's heart and face and countenance, and they mock that. They're like, see, you didn't think you could do it. And Nephi's not worried about doing what the Lord commands. He's learned to be malleable and trusting upon God to do hard things. Remember, he didn't let his faith drop while they went to get the brass plates and then went back to get Ishmael and his family. But he's sad because they mock him. Have you ever felt that way? You have a dream on your heart or something you want to share, and your family doesn't always support that mission or see what you're being shown spiritually. I think this is an interesting time in the journey for this family, because they don't only murmur and complain. They reach a fever pitch of this where they're going to kill their father and their brother. And Nephi talks to them from the scriptures about the children of Israel and Moses and how they complained and decided they wanted to just go back and be, slaves to the Egyptians instead of being taught and out in their wilderness experience. And Nephi talks to them about how Moses's words helped create the parting of the Red Sea and the water coming from the rock. And so I think it's important to know in this chapter that also our words help create, right? What words are you using to help create? My dog just jumped on my bed and she's not supposed to. Ruby, off. Raw, off. Now you know the true story of our family, Ruby the dog. So by creation, we can also practice that in our own lives. What words, the rice experiment of cooking a batch of rice and putting them in a jar and putting the word hate on one jar and love on the other. There's a ton of YouTube videos about that you can watch. And then I love that this talks about how, in a way that Nephi is trying to use stories that they already know, and he's trying to inspire them with faith. And they get into this crazy headspace where they're like, no one's going to be destroyed in Jerusalem. They're really cool people. So that makes me think that they've been traveling along maybe a trade route of some sort, or maybe they've talked to some buddies. I don't think, they didn't have texting, but they seem to believe that their dad had made this all up and that Jerusalem was fine and the people there were great. But there's a timestamp on the bottom of your scriptures. And so in 589 BC, King Nebuchadnezzar laid siege ultimately of Jerusalem. And then by 587 or 586 BC, Jerusalem is destroyed. This is Nephi testifying in 591 BC. So 591, just a couple of years later, King Nebuchadnezzar is coming. So the Lord removed them in time. But Nephi is saying if they haven't already been destroyed, they're close to being. And that's really, the timeline lays perfectly on top of each other. And Nephi is so sad about the choices of his brothers. His heart is breaking and he's preaching to them and they're angry all the time. And this is the great zapper miracle. I call it the zapper miracle, where he grabs them, right? And they are overcome by the Spirit and power. And Nephi is very clear on his mission, and that Spirit that has come from him trusting God and praising God is with him. And his Spirit is so powerful, it shuts up his brothers and they zap him. And before that, they're going to have to get on a boat and travel. And I think God was making sure they knew Nephi had the power. They tried to worship him and he's like, no, we worship God, right? But the Spirit is powerful. And so as we parent, as we do our work, as we do our ministering, as we do anything in the community, in our homes, in our families, pray for that mighty Spirit. That is the influence by which people can be inspired and changed. Thanks for joining me today.